Welcome to the Renegade X multiplayer podcast. I'm Fabi, the founder of Renegade X.
And I'm Havik89, the lead artist of Renegade X.
Yeah. So today,
Woo!
in today's podcast, we're going to be talking about Black Dawn postmortem, and we're going to be talking about the Renegade X game design for multiplayer.
Yep, multiplayer is just around the corner.
Yeah. So it's been a long time since we've done any kind of podcast. What do you have to say about that, Havik?
It has been far too long, and I think it's about time we started to shed some light on our awesome new multiplayer. We hope you guys are going to enjoy.
Excellent. So let's get started. So what is Black Dawn? Black Dawn is a standalone mini single-player campaign that we released in January 2012. It is a UDK game. It's a 2-hour or 1 to 2 hour experience, and you can download it for free at renegade-x.com. One of the reasons why we released Black Dawn prior to the multiplayer version was that it would be a way for us to expand Renegade X from being just a modification into being a standalone game. So it opened some doors that would otherwise be closed, and we were able to give people a preliminary taste before doing the multiplayer version. So it's a kind of test that does not rely on servers or time zones or ping or the amount of players in game. It's a static experience that everybody can enjoy offline, and they can give their feedback on performance or on the new features that we've been adding. And it's a way that we were able to see how our audience reacted to some of the changes that we made to the game formula. We also developed a lot of assets and brought a lot of things in-game into Black Dawn that we're going to be reusing for the multiplayer version, like map assets and, of course, like the weapons and the vehicles and those kind of things, while at the same time bringing people a kind of reminiscent experience of the Renegade single player, where you're going and you're rescuing scientists, and that's pretty much what the original single player was about. So how was Black Dawn received? Well, we got about 300,000 downloads from all over the world, and that's automatically a lot better than any multiplayer beta we released in the past. That's because anything we did before Black Dawn relied on Unreal Tournament 3, so we got maybe 10 to 30,000 downloads and definitely not that many players. While for Black Dawn, we were able to break those limits, those confines that we had, and really get something that anyone with a good computer can play. And this month especially, Black Dawn really got a lot of downloads from the South American community. I think we had 60,000 downloads this month alone from what we were able to see. And of course, like when we released, we got a lot of attention from the Chinese community as well. About 100,000 downloads from China.
As well as we managed to get on gaming websites that we would otherwise have been unable to get onto, such as Game Informer's, PC Gamer, Joystick, and all these other things. And because of the UDK, where we are now considered as a standalone game instead of a mod, and as you know, mods don't get as much attention as full-on games.
Yeah, and like you said, we got on big sites including UDK.com. So that puts Renegade X out there in a way that we would have never been as an Unreal Tournament 3 mod.
So some of the ways that Black Dawn helped us a lot in the multiplayer is because we managed to nail down some of the core basic features that we need regardless of whether it's a single player game or a multiplayer game. So if you think about some things like how the weapons are supposed to be set up, how the character movements are going to be, or how the vehicles are going to handle, all these things, they need to be set up regardless of whether they're going to be in a single player or multiplayer environment.
Yeah, like we've already done 5 alphas for the multiplayer, and like we already had the heads-up display in game. We had a lot of the weapons in game, a lot of the vehicles in game, a lot of the visual systems like the morph target already set up during the Black Dawn development phase. So multiplayer, I mean, we've gotten a lot further than we would have otherwise thought, because the UT3 multiplayer took a lot longer than the UDK one is taking.
Right, so essentially what we had to focus on was more or less the command and conquer mode and any new features that we were planning, rather than having to worry too much about the basics.
Again, and since this is a post-mortem of Black Dawn, we also need to talk about some of the cons, like some of the things that we had learned from the experience. I mean, there was plenty of things that we would have done differently if we were to do Black Dawn again today. One of the major things was we struggled with the AI in Black Dawn. Now, what happened was we were using this stock AI more or less from the UDK, and as you can see, the AI was pretty terrible. A lot of the times it didn't shoot at you, or a lot of the times it would just run up at you. I mean, what are some of the bad experiences you've had with AI?
Well, some of the experiences that I remember particularly is the second objective where the bots are actually supposed to come to you, but then they go off all the way to the Tiberium field.
Yeah, sometimes they would just go and enjoy the sights while there was like a giant battle
Ignore the
going
huge
on.
battle that's happening 5 feet away. I'm going to go see the sights.
Yeah, and I remember what most people were frustrated with was I think was it the fifth objective with the helicopters? The helicopters would come and drop off the AI, and the AI really just was not fun to mess with.
No, it was a massacre.
And your friendly AI, they didn't do much. Like they would sometimes even shoot at you or shoot at the ground, not really shoot at the enemies, which again, a lot of that is due to the fact that we thought we were not going to have any AI in multiplayer, so might as well just kind of have some scripted events and some AI helping you out, following you, or doing certain things. But it did really bite us in the end because, like, even sometimes the MLS would not go to their objectives and you'd have to wait longer than expected. And one of the other problems with Black Dawn was the voices, the voice acting, and clips that we used in order to, I guess, narrate the story. And what we basically did was we took the existing Renegade sound bites and clips, and we used that for Black Dawn because we thought it would be reminiscent of the original game. Like, if we had someone else playing Havoc, then I think a lot of people would be up in arms about that, especially if it weren't very good. You know, again, we're not a professional team. We're about 10 active members. It was basically a huge project for us to undertake. So a lot of team members had to fill in for the voice acting. Like we had Robin, he did McFarland, and we had to invent that character in order to take you around the mission and narrate the story. But otherwise, there were other parts where the conversations were not as fluid as we wanted them to be.
Right, probably heard 1,000 of Havoc's one-liners coming in left, right, and center, which kind of ended up disrupting the conversations.
But overall, I mean, another problem with Black Dawn was the long development time. Again, we're not a very big team, but even so, like we could have done better in the sense that Black Dawn took more than a year to develop, and it's just a 1 to 2 hour game. I do agree. I mean, although there were a lot of things done in Black Dawn that helped out for multiplayer, we did spend a lot of time on things like cinematics and the scripted events and objectives that they don't get inherited by the multiplayer. They stay with Black Dawn. And in that sense, we put a lot of time into that. Some people would have preferred us to put that into multiplayer. And we are a multiplayer game first. So, I mean, a lot of us felt the same way.
Right, but we couldn't just abandon the project entirely because, I mean, we put a lot of effort into it, so we had to finish it.
Yep, and conclusion with regards to Black Dawn, I mean, there were some mixed reactions and mixed reviews, though I guess overall we are pretty happy with it in the sense that it is the only single player FPS Command and Conquer game to come out of the modding slash indie gaming community. And especially when Tiberium was cancelled, the EA project, a lot of people were disappointed that they were looking forward to some kind of CNC FPS single player game. And I think this is the closest thing that the community is going to get to it for a while. And I mean, we did have cinematics, and we had a lot of things that reminded us of Command and Conquer 95 and of the first Renegade game. And it was good to see the old characters come back as well.
I mean, fingers crossed for maybe another official CNC FPS.
Yeah, and if not, then let's hope that one of the other CNC FPS games, like indie games, releases some kind of single player in the near future. But otherwise, Black Dawn did get us into places that we wouldn't have otherwise been. A lot of reactions, a lot of downloads, and hopefully that'll boost any kind of player count for the future multiplayer version. It does a great job of advertising the game.
Alright, so now we can finally talk about multiplayer, and as we said before, Black Dawn sort of had the framework of the game, so we were actually able to very quickly get all of the characters, all of the vehicles, and all of the weapons in-game in a multiplayer environment functioning properly as they should. But now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the art is completed for all of these things, but at least we have them in-game so that we can go ahead and play test and make sure that all of the maps that we are building, they play really well, and any new features that we do plan to add, they mingle in properly with everything that already existed.
Yeah, and we are a multiplayer game first, so we really are glad to be where we're meant to be. And the team really did shift into place after Black Dawn was completed we're back into multiplayer mode, and that's what we're really happy with. One of the new major ideas that we have for the multiplayer version this time around is that we want to add tech buildings. So, what is a tech building? A tech building is a neutral structure, an indestructible structure, which is on the field, and it adds an extra advantage to whatever team captures it. So one of the tech buildings we had planned was an oil rig. So the oil rig would start out neutral at the beginning of the game. Then GDI or NOD can send an engineer to the tech building, and with their repair gun, they're able to capture the building. And that building, in this case, an oil rig, would give extra credits to that team. So it's not a primary objective. The primary objective of every map in CNC mode is still to destroy the enemy base, but it's a secondary thing that you can do to give your team that extra boost that might make a difference.
Now, of course, there are more tech buildings to discuss, but at the moment we're just not ready to discuss it yet because the list of tech buildings can go on forever. Still have to decide which are going to be the best tech buildings to add in game.
And how tech building affects map design is that we were thinking of having tech buildings both on original maps and perhaps even some of the remake maps. It adds another element to that so that it renews the remake map and that there's something new to do in it. There's new tactics and there's new advantages that each team can employ with these tech buildings. And I think it really will add a dynamic element to the game that the UT3 version was lacking.
So if you remember, aircrafts were in CNC Renegade, and in the Unreal Tournament 3 version they were not because we were still in the beta phase. But if you played Black Dawn, you remember seeing the Apache and the transport helicopter. Those are back, and the Orca as well. The art is not necessarily done, but they will be making a return. And they're going to handle a little bit differently this time around. We don't want them to be the equivalent of a Humvee or a buggy with a rocket launcher that's just floating around up there. The emphasis of the primary role of each of these attack helicopters is going to be very similar to Siberian Dawn, where the Apache had a bigger gun and the Orca had better missiles. Now, I'm not saying that the Orca is not going to have a machine gun or the Apache is not going to have rockets. They will, but that won't be their primary weapon. And we have also added in something like a reload mechanic so that you can't just sit at one location and continuously keep shooting a target and just being annoying to everybody else. So that's why with a long sort of a reload and a kind of a payload style attack, so basically they end up getting a more of a hit and run support role and not just another vehicle on the field.
And you didn't get to actually fly the Apache and the Orca in Black Dawn, but I can say just from the from the alpha tests that we've had, that the way they fly is it's in between realistic and arcadey, and I think it's perfect because in Renegade it was just a sort of vertical takeoff and landing, while this actually feels like an aircraft, and it really does respond to you that way. And I think if there was one vehicle that we had nailed down for this multiplayer version, it's definitely the Apache slash the Orca, which both fly the same way, but like you said, they have different weapons, so they're going to have different tactics. Another thing is that with the alpha so far, we have all the weapons in game. So already in that aspect, all the weapons and vehicles are in game. All the buildings are in game. Purchase system is in game as well as vehicle creation and repairing and destroying buildings. So in that sense, we're actually further now than we were during the 0.55 beta. Now, of course, there's still a lot of polishing to do, but we do have some new weapons in Renegade X that would be substituting existing weapons that we thought needed some changes or improvements. So one of the examples is the rocket launcher. And Havoc, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. If you remember the rocket officers in the original game, they were pretty useless. Nobody really used them. They had a very slow firing rocket that you could easily avoid, even at close range. So we wanted to make a rocket launcher that played more of a role of the RTS rocket infantry, where it fired a single missile that locked onto the target, was also pretty devastating. So that's exactly what we have done. We've also changed the art. So it's more reminiscent of, kind of like a bazooka style.
Right, and this way it's different from Gunner, and it's different. I mean, it's no longer the Rocket Officer. I think we've also renamed it to the Rocket Infantry, and it is definitely more true to the RTS.
Absolutely.
And it even has a locking function where you can actually lock onto a target and then hide behind some cover. And in some cases, the missile will actually maneuver over the cover and hit the target that you're aiming at. It's also pretty good anti-aircraft infantry because we thought Renegade was lacking that. You have to remember that with Renegade, Westwood did not release the aircraft until after the game was released with city flying and walls flying. And they really did last minute, like they used the snipers as the main anti-aircraft weapon, and there's going to be some changes with regards to that, and we'll probably go into detail in one of our posts in the future. Another major weapon change that we're doing, it's actually more of a character change, is that GDI had two Sydneys, and the personal ion cannon Sydney is the one. She has a parachute. That's pretty much her role. But there was something that we didn't think really fit with GDI, and that was a Tiberium auto rifle. And it also wasn't a very useful weapon. I mean, it was 150 credits, and you probably better off with just like a free engineer or something. We're replacing Sydney with McFarland, and McFarland's also going to have his own unique weapon that's going to balance out with the Chem Warrior. We're not going to disclose any information about that weapon right now, but we did say in Black Dawn that McFarland is going to be making an appearance in multiplayer, and this is how it's going to be done.
The other Tiberium weapon that GDI has that does not really make sense is the Tiberium Flechette rifle. And if you remember in Black Dawn, we had the tactical rifle. That's going to be the new replacement for it. And the reason why we're doing that is, again, because it doesn't really make sense for GDI. And of course, that it doesn't really balance too well with the laser chain gunner that Nod has. So now we have a weapon that is both good against vehicle and infantry that balances out a bit better with the laser chain gunner.
Yeah, definitely. Like the laser chain gunner had a faster rate of fire, and it was an instant hit weapon. It was good against both infantry and vehicles, and that wasn't really the case with the Tiberium Flechette rifle. So, and like you said, it didn't. It was a Tiberium-based weapon. GDI was more associated with removing Tiberium and not weaponizing it. So we thought the tactical rifle was a good replacement for it, and it also kind of fits GDI's style a bit more because it's still a projectile-based weapon, but it's a sort of slow but stronger rounds, and you can see that GDI in many respects, in comparison to Nod, is always slower and stronger, and thought the tactical rifle was a good display of that as well. Something else that we're very excited to announce today is that we're going to be having some AI in the multiplayer version. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's it's the return of the terrible Black Dawn AI. Actually, we're doing things a little bit differently this time. Ripple, who's the lead programmer on the team, has been working on an AI that actually knows how to play CNC mode. Now, again, they're not going to be the same as a live player, but they do repair buildings, they buy vehicles, they save money for better vehicles, they attack structures. It's basically a working AI with our game mode, and it's the return of skirmish mode, where you don't have to be connected to the internet. There doesn't have to be any players online. If you're in like a distant time zone, or if you can't sleep or something, you can start the game on your own, and you can add 32 bots or something like that into a map, and you can start playing. And it's pretty good because it's good for stress testing. We're able to have a full server to see how performance runs before releasing Renegade X multiplayer. It's also good for server owners who want to balance the team or want to add extra players if their server is empty or something like that. And the last topic that we'd like to talk about today is the items in Renegade X. So we're going to be replacing the super weapons menu on the purchase terminal with an items menu. It's going to have several items, and we're gonna talk about two of them today. One of them you're familiar with, and one of them is new. So the first is the ion cannon and nuke, and I'll let Havoc handle the rest.
So the ion cannon and the nuke is something that you're pretty familiar with if you've played the original game or even played the UT3 beta. And the new thing is the airstrike. So if you remember in Black Dawn, there were often A-10s and the AC-130 flying over. They're going to be making a return in the multiplayer, and their role is pretty different from the ion cannon and nuke, where their primary function is just to destroy a static target, not something that moves around. Whereas the airstrike is more for an area damage, and it's not very effective against buildings. The way that it's supposed to work is still kind of in discussion, but we do know that it's not something that you need to be at the area to deploy. You just need to be nearby it, and it's not something that you can actually disarm. You can only avoid it. So this kind of has this bit of a surprise element where if you can sneak up to a group of enemies that are not aware of you, you can try and issue an airstrike near these guys, and if they don't pay attention, they can get owned by these things.
Yeah, and it's a way to deal with stalemates as well, because we've always been in situations in both the UT3 version of Renegade X and the original Renegade. There was camping, and the airstrike is a way to it'll force either like a dissipation or retreat or destruction of camping vehicles and units. it is an interesting way to refresh the gameplay. And something that Havoc did mention about the nukes and the ion cannons is that they pretty much will work the same way, but there are some differences in the sense that you're not going to be able to disarm a nuke when it's right above your head anymore. Instead, we're going to have a 45-second times after the nuke beacon is deployed, where the enemy team is able to disarm it with their repair guns. But after those 45 seconds are up, the beacon disappears, and then the nuke comes down and destroys the building. Now, I know what you're thinking. In those few seconds, perhaps that are disarming it get away and avoid the nuke completely and not get killed by it. Well, what we're doing this time around is the nuke and the ion cannon are still designed for direct damage to the building, but there will be a larger damage radius against infantry and vehicles. So that way, in the last few seconds of disarming, you have a choice to either continue disarming it or to save your unit and get away. That's a choice. It's a game-changing choice, really.
Alright, so now that we have all of that out of the way, I think we should also discuss some important topics about recruitment. As you know, we are a pretty small but devoted team, and we do need help. Anybody who's an environment artist or a level designer, of course you need to have knowledge of UDK and how to efficiently make maps. We also need animators. If you know how to make guns look awesome in first person or even the character animations in third person, drop us a line for sure. Programmers, if there are any gameplay programmers or any network programmers that are willing to help, we could definitely use some help from you guys as well. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and we could also use some character artists who are able to make some high quality and low quality characters. That way, we'll be able to finish the remainder of the characters that we still have. Otherwise, I also wanted to wish our community a happy 3-year anniversary, because September 30th, 2009 was the first time we released a Renegade X multiplayer. And hopefully now that we're on the road, now we're back to multiplayer, I want everyone to know that we're going to finish this project. We've been through too much to just leave it aside. Even though we are a small team, non-profit, we're going to power through and we're going to finish and give everything that we promised. And so no matter how quiet the public sphere gets, whether we're not giving updates publicly, you know that when things are quiet, it's good. It means things are happening in the background. It means we're too busy to be doing updates. That's really the truth. We did take a couple months off after Black Dawn just to take a break from everything. But right after that, we got right into multiplayer, and we're so happy to be where we are right now. And we're just about done with the alpha phase. We're about to start our beta testing phase now that CNC mode is on its way to completion. So we wanted to thank our fans for their all that time. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks to you guys. We're still busy.
Anyways, if there is anyone that wants to help out with the project, you can always just apply. We do have a recruitment poster in the news section you can check out. Otherwise, I think that's it for today. If you have any questions, please post on the thread, like us on Facebook, follow our Twitter, and all that stuff. Stay connected. Keep your eye out for any updates.
So thanks again, and we hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and of course the footage along with it. We did decide to add in some video footage, make it a little more interesting. So yeah, you can see some gameplay right there. And yeah, thanks again, guys.
Yep. All right. Take care. Keep your eye out for more updates. From Fabi.
And from Havoc89.
Farewell.
Right.
Take care, guys.
Bye.